Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of our attendees joining us today for this latest Data Science Central webinar. This is Bill Voorhees, your host. I'm the editorial director with Data Science Central and also chief data scientist for Data Magnum. Now, I'd like to start off our event today by thanking Trifacta and Forrester for sponsoring today's event. Trifacta and Forrester are both longtime supporters of the Data Science Central community, and we're honored to have them sponsoring our event today. Now, today's webinar is entitled Data Prep for DataOps, How to Select and Deploy, and that'll be presented jointly by Trifacta and Forrester. But before we begin, I'd like to briefly review the format of today's webinar. Today's event will be an hour long. We have two presenters who I'll introduce in just a minute. There'll be 10 to 15 minutes of Q&A following the presentation. And this event is being recorded and will be available on datasciencecentral.com later this afternoon following today's live event. Now, I'd also like to encourage our attendees to provide questions throughout the presentation, because we'll be reviewing and presenting them on your behalf during the Q&A portion of today's event. Well, I'm very pleased to introduce today's speakers, Will Davis with Trifacta and Cinny Little with Forrester. Now, Will is Senior Director of Product Marketing at Trifacta. He drives go-to-market and product marketing efforts, having spent the past 8 years managing the marketing initiatives for several high-growth data companies. Now, prior to Trifacta, Will worked with a variety of companies focused on data infrastructure, analytics, and visualization, including Good Data, Greenplum, and ClearStory Data. Now, Cinny is a Senior Analyst at Forrester and serves as a customer insights professional, helping analysts navigate the complexities of using data to derive actionable insights. Her research includes customer intelligence and insights strategy, data preparation tools, organization and process, innovation, and best practices. Now, Cinny holds an MBA from the Simmons School of Management and a BA from Bowdoin College. Well, Will, Cinny, thank you for being with us today. We're looking forward to your presentation. Now, in recent years, a new term in data has cropped up more frequently, DataOps. As an adaptation of the software development methodology DevOps, DataOps refers to the tools, methodology, and organizational structure that businesses must adopt to improve the velocity, quality, and reliability of analytics. Now, widely recognized as the biggest bottleneck in the analytics process, data prep is a critical element of building a successful data ops practice by providing speed, agility, and trust in the data. So in today's Data Science Central webinar, Forrester Senior Analyst Cinny Little will focus on how to successfully select and deploy a data prep solution for data ops, and the presentation will include insights on the data preparation found in the Forrester Wave Data Preparation Solution Q4 2018 report. So in today's webinar, you'll learn where does data preparation fit within DataOps, what are the key technical and business differentiators of data preparation solutions, and how to align the right technologies, people, and processes for success with data preparations in DataOps. So Will, with that, I'm going to turn it over to you. You can begin just as soon as you're ready to go.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks for that introduction. So as Bill mentioned, my name is Will Davis. I head up product marketing at Trifacta, and I just wanted to give a quick shout out and review the agenda before I pass it over to Cinny to present her portion of the webinar. As Bill mentioned, we're really excited to have Cinny Little join us as a guest speaker. She's a senior analyst at Forrester. Cinny and I have known each other for a few years now. Cinny is one of the leading analysts on data preparation in the market for the past few years, and so really excited to have her on the webinar to share findings from her research, both talking to vendors, customers, and users of data preparation solutions, and reviewing her latest research, which is the Forrester Wave that came out this past few months. So the agenda, I'm going to pass it to Cinny in just a minute. Cinny's going to review the organizational alignment required for data-driven decision-making, talk through the goal of DataOps, so why take on this new process or implement this new process within an organization, and how data preparation and DataOps intersect. So then I will take on in the second half of the presentation, talk about the role of data preparation within DataOps, give a quick overview of Trifacta, and then give you some thinking in terms of how do organizations select a data preparation solution and how do they set up the right thinking and right framework to deploy that. And then, throughout the presentation, we'll be taking questions and we'll be answering those at the end of the presentation. So please enter your questions into the chat window and we'll be addressing them towards the end. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Cinny to present her portion of the presentation. Take it away, Cinny.
Thank you very much, Will, and hello, everybody. It's great to be here with you today. So I'm going to talk today about optimizing your data value with a modern DataOps team. But let's set the context first. The context is about our customers, and your customers want what they want, where and when they want it, and they don't get their ideas about that, all of them anyway, from you and your company. And data plays an absolutely critical role in this. So let's look at a little overview about the job to be done to help those customers of yours and improve the business outcomes of your firm. I'm going to talk about the 4 V's of big data, which are going to keep continuing their explosive growth. I'm going to talk about activating data and why data activation must be in the hands of those who can take actions to improve business outcomes. I'm going to talk about how prepping data is the key process bottleneck and how data preparations can help with that. And as Will mentioned, I'll be talking about the data preparation solutions wave that I completed and published earlier this quarter. So we thought we had too much data in 2016. Look at the growth of data volumes here. And the 4 V's of data, big data are very much still in operation and will keep being in operation. The volume, the variety, the velocity of data, and the need to have veracity in the data so that we can use it will continue to explode. But there's a big problem out there. The percent of decisions being made based on data was 45%, according to Forrester's research, in 2017 and 2018. No change. And it was lower than in 2016. Sure, companies with higher revenues have a higher percent of decisions being made from data, which shows you that if they're better at using data for decision making, they're better at putting data to work and improving their business outcomes with data. There's plenty of aspiration going on out there in all companies who are changing their culture to rely more on quantitative decision making, and also reorganizing, building cross-functional teams that can collaborate and work with agility and all of those things, but it's not enough. Today's lack of alignment in data and insights and taking actions from them work like this. Wherever the data currently is, maybe in the IT team or elsewhere, there's a gap between what it does and it getting to the business teams at a high enough rate to really get the maximum value out of data. So what this means is that we have to work differently. And the way we need to work differently is with DataOps. The goal of DataOps is to change and improve the activation of data, and do that with collaboration and communication between folks that work with data, with software development and data engineering and all of those roles, so that we're better collaborating, better achieving outcomes and value from our data. It's no less than this. And again, it goes back to the customer always. The job to be done here is to use data to deliver insights that are used to improve and optimize the customer experiences that matter most to your business outcomes. It's those 2 things together, the customer experiences that matter most, and that takes a village. I also want to just point out, when I say insights, I mean insights in every part of the organization. Every part of your organization somehow affects customer experiences, no matter how far away we are from actual customer-facing roles. That's really critical. The data is everywhere in the firm. That data has to be optimized and used to get those insights that are then activated to improve your outcomes. Data analytics then has two jobs within the organization, and they seem like they're at odds with each other, but they're not. It's not either or, defense and offense, when it comes to data. It's both and let's look quickly at that. So the defense part is well understood, pretty fully grasped by IT and the business. We hear always a lot about the single source of truth and its critical role that it absolutely does play in our work with data. It's about control. Depending on your industry, you may have more aspects of compliance that are required, but even if not, you still need that single source of truth. And yet, that single source of truth also plays a role of feeding the necessary multiple sources of truth. Let me give you a couple of examples of that. One is the different definitions of customer that we need in organizations. This is the offense part. So we use that single source of truth to come up with the very necessary multiple sources of truth. It's not necessarily all one. Another example is people have different needs to look at revenue even differently in the firm, and there are ways that must use data to do that. So the defense and the offense are required. And to do that, to do this work, it takes a village. We see here the data tribe that needs to bring the right expertise to data, all the different roles. I'm not going to dive into a lot of detail here because I know Will is going to speak to this in his part of the presentation as well. But it is absolutely a team sport. Data operations for insights to actions requires all of these different roles, some of which are sitting in the business, some in ET, some are actually not humans at all. And it's critical that these roles are served in order to execute that defense and offense of data. So now let's turn to data prep. About 80% of all effort that goes into working with data is preparing it to make it the rocket fuel for data activation. So clearly, we need tools, processes, technology that will lower that level of effort for us and enable us to work at the speed of our customers. Let's look at 4 roles I want to talk about that data preparation solutions play in this activating data as rocket fuel. The first role that data plays is to put trusted data where the money is, turbocharged by machine learning. Let me tell you what I mean by that. Our stakeholders are the ones that have the budgets to take actions from insights on data. That's where the money is. So we have to make sure that we don't have that problem where the insights are falling into the water on that slide that I showed earlier. We have to make sure that there's an alignment between the data and its and analytics and what it needs to do, the job it needs to do. Effective data management isn't a goal or even an end in itself. It's a contributor to that true goal, using actions based on data, using insights based on data to take actions. So that's the first of the 4 important things. The second is to deliver common processes to power data and insights across silos. There's little that's easy about working across organizational silos to win, serve, and retain our customers. And data that's siloed in separate data lakes or warehouses or tools that may not even belong to or be able to be accessible to business or operation areas get in the way. A data preparation solutions helps break down those silo walls through the data tribe that's working together on that, and enables the rapid blending, transforming, and profiling of data across all the data types and sources, along with metadata management, collaboration features, and pipelining. The third thing that a data preparation tool must do is to play nicely with existing data sources, tools, and IT architecture. Enterprises have existing tools from business intelligence to analytics and existing resources such as data scientists that are delivering value but would deliver more and much faster if they could get a hold of more prepared data that can be trusted. Data preparation solutions deliver on that, and also on another key element to turbocharging time to action, the ability to seamlessly use those existing enterprise tools for reports and dashboards, the tools data scientists prefer, and more. But those are the two that usually come up most. And finally, we need to, as I spoke about a bit before, enable data preparation to be wherever it needs to be in the enterprise. That's really critical. Professionals across firms need to activate data wherever they are on the org chart, in customer insights, customer experience, digital, marketing, and in operational areas. Remember, insights everywhere in the firm. Operational areas such as service and supply chain, and corporate areas, competitive intelligence, finance, and human resources. Data preparation solutions make it possible for data to be where it needs to be. So now I'm going to turn to making a few comments about my Data Preparation Solutions Wave that was published in Q4 of this year. Here we see, and I'm not going to go through these in detail, you can look at them later after you get the recording and the slides, the inclusion criteria, how I decided which solutions I was going to include in the wave. And so you can see there's inclusion criteria around how long the product has been on the market, that it's focused on support for multiple user personas, consistent with what I've talked about here, and then some criteria around number of customers, geography, and more. Here is the result of the Data Preparation Solutions Wave. As we see, the leaders are Trifacta, Paxata, Unify Software, TIBCO, and SAP. We see strong performers, Oracle, ClearStory Data, and DataWatch. DataMirror is a contender, and SAS's Data Loader for Hadoop is a challenger. Over on the right there is a high-level overview of the aspects that my scoring turned up that put those vendors in those categories. For the leaders, the importance of the use of machine learning sophistication and roadmap that is making the data preparation solution do more for the users without them having to take actions was critical. Also, that ability to have robust collaboration features enabling people to work together better, and a clear road to data and insight activation. So do it for me, help me collaborate, and that clear road to activation. The strong performers also had a machine learning focus, metadata management and cataloging, and are able to deliver time to value, with the challengers and contenders showing data activation and time to value and robust set of planned enhancements. Here we see a high-level version of the scoring that was done for the wave, where the current offering aspects represent the ability to solve today's information challenges, and the strategy criteria determine how vendors will future-proof your data. So that's what I wanted to talk about today in terms of DataOps and how it is going to help us deliver more value from our data, how data preparation solutions enable us to better manage those 4 V's of big data that are going to keep us on our toes, and enable us to fight data silos and win. That's how you grow value from data. Data preparation tools are accelerating towards the do-it-for-me, especially for the business user, putting those data tools where the money is. And finally, data preparation solutions are a key enterprise data activator tool. Choose the one that best meets your needs. And with that, Will, I'd like to turn it over back to you.
Thanks, Cinny. Great overview of your research, the role of data preparation and data ops, and what you're seeing in the market. So appreciate that overview. And very bold of you to share your email there. I would not do that if I were you. You might get some feedback, but we'll see what happens. So now that I'm taking over the second half, I'm going to just give an overview of Trifacta's view of data ops as it relates to data preparation, and also talk a little bit about what we do at Trifacta, success we've had in the industry, some of our customers, and what differentiates our solution among other data preparation solutions. So I'm going to share one of my favorite definitions of DataOps. This comes from a company called Nexla. And the way they define it is DataOps is the function within an organization that controls the data journey from source to value. And I think this is very much aligned with what we are trying to make more efficient, make more scalable, and make more repeatable at Trifacta as a data preparation platform. So if you look at the analytics process, the process of taking data from a diverse set of platforms that are in various structures, such as databases, Excel files, log files, applications, the emergence of IoT sensor data, and taking that data in a variety of formats and systems and making that usable for analysis, whether that's in your enterprise data warehouse, whether that's in some machine learning or AI application, or standard reporting in a business intelligence or data visualization solution. 80% of this process, of any analysis work, is spent cleaning and preparing data. I have a quote here from DJ Patil, who was one of the original data scientists at LinkedIn and was the former chief data scientist under the Obama administration, and he has this famous quote that, it's impossible to overstress this. 80% of the work in any project is spent cleaning the data. And this is the bottleneck. This bottleneck, the journey from source to target or source to value is what we're focused on in making that more efficient. And so if you look at what this process looks like and who are the stakeholders within this, we view this process as not linear, it's iterative. So first you need to discover what's in the data, structure the data into the appropriate format that you need to do the analysis on, cleaning out any inconsistencies or mismatching values or missing values, enriching, so bringing disparate data sources together. These could be disparate internal data sources or disparate internal and external data sources, validating that the data is accurate and correct, and then deploying that into the downstream application or data platform where the analysis is going to happen. So a lot of the times when this data preparation process is happening, you'll take 3 steps, realize there was a mistake, or realize you want to augment the analysis in some way, and then start all over again. So this, although we present it as a straight line, if anyone who's a practitioner knows that this is very much an iterative and back and forth process. And the users that we target are data analysts, so the people who have the greatest context for the data, who typically live in Excel spreadsheets, Tableau, and have an understanding of data and the value of it, but probably have never had the opportunity or the skill set to prepare data themselves. So we're very much focused on providing a solution designed for data analysts that's visual, that's powered by machine learning, as Cinny mentioned, that allows them to take raw data or disparate data sources and prepare them, bring them together for the analysis that they want to do, instead of relying on a member of their IT team or some technical resource within the organization. We've also been seeing the emergence of the data engineer as a key role within organizations for analytics. So data engineers we see as primary users of Trifacta, typically in the sense of pipelining anything that's been driven by an analyst. So what I mean by pipelining is an analyst will build some sort of data preparation workflow, and then that needs to be operationalized or set on a schedule to be run in a repeatable fashion. So that's typically the role of the data engineer in this workflow. And then we also have data scientists who, oftentimes want to do the data prep work in a coding framework like R, or Python, or Java. But we're seeing more and more organizations realize that collaboration, repeatability, transparency of analytics processes is critical. And so leveraging a common platform like Trifacta to do the data preparation work is critical for data scientists to share their work, collaborate with others, and provide transparency into how they came up with results. So from a DataOps perspective, it sort of looks like this cycle. You have data sources, you run through this process of preparation that could span both the analyst, the engineer, and the data scientist. And once you've built out a workflow of how I'm taking data from different sources, structuring it, cleaning it, bringing it together, and validating it, then there's this process of automation. And that's typically done by a data engineer and taking a workflow or some sort of data pipeline and making sure that's running on a specific schedule. So when data updates, maybe on a daily, weekly, or hourly basis, that then feeds some sort of analysis. That could be an application, that could be a visualization tool, or some data warehouse, as I mentioned before. So this is essentially this life cycle. And in the DataOps, the focus of DataOps is making this as fast and as iterative and agile as possible. And so this is where we're trying to come in as a vendor and say, hey, this requires a new technology, new users, and a new process to make this faster, more efficient, and provide higher quality analytics at the end of this. So, why Trifacta for data preparation? I think there are a few different focus areas here. Looks like this slide isn't rendering, but essentially the way we approach this is going to be focused on the user, where the data resides, so the data platform, and also what they're trying to do. So I'm going to move on since this slide isn't rendering. We'll go ahead. So if you look at today's landscape, data lives in a variety of different areas. So you have on-premise data. This could be in a SQL Server. This could be in Oracle. This could be in a Hadoop environment like Cloudera and Hortonworks. You have data that lives in these systems, and you need to sort of prep that either with diverse data there or with data that lives in different cloud environments. So, 2018 for us has been a key year in the emergence of cloud. And so we have never seen as much interest in, data management, analytics, and data science running in cloud ecosystems. And so this is, the market leader we've seen today is Amazon Web Services, and the typical analytics stack that we see is across S3, EMR, and Redshift. We also see the rise of Azure with the platforms for storage of ADLS and the storage blob, HD Insights or Azure Databricks as the processing framework, and then the SQL Data Warehouse as the analytic environment. And then Google Cloud Platform with cloud storage, data flow for processing, and BigQuery for analysis. So our focus is providing a solution that is able to interoperate with all of these different environments. So if you have data on-prem, if you have data in Amazon or in any of these different clouds, we provide a seamless access layer that provides data security, access controls, transparent data lineage for all the transformations that are applied to those data sources, integration with a data catalog, and then also the ability to have connectivity to these different sources, both on-prem and in the cloud. So you have sort of this single pane of glass that is able to access, transform, and publish data across these different environments and provide the seamless data security, seamless lineage, and then connectivity all in a single platform. So if you look at some of the customers that we see, I would say the traction that we've seen in data preparation to date and as a vendor have been focused on financial services, insurance, healthcare, and pharma. We also see a number in the vertical we call industrials. So this is transportation, electricity, and different utilities in that sense, and then government agencies. So we've seen a tremendous amount of success across multiple different verticals, leveraging Trifacta as the data preparation standard for a group or for their company as a whole. And some of the value that we see is that providing a common platform that different users can access raw data, prepare it, and share that with their colleagues provides governance controls. It provides better collaboration. So instead of users pulling down data and doing preparation on their desktop or using Excel, having this common framework to do this work increases the number of people that are collaborating across this process, increases the value that they're able to drive from their analytics practices. So if you look at the way we have different packages provided to our customers and users, it's a seamless user experience, seamless metadata. The way you interact with data, the way you build recipes is seamless across all these different platforms. So if you build a workflow in one edition of our technology, that can interoperate with any other edition in case you upgrade across these different editions. So we have a free product. This is a cloud application called Trifacta Wrangler. It's for individuals. It's not a trial. It's completely free for anyone who wants to try it out and see firsthand the experience of Trifacta and working with data. There are limitations around some of the functionality and some of the data volume limits, but you're able to work with files up to 100 megabytes completely for free for as long as you want, and we provide community support. So you can go to our website at trifacta.com, start wrangling, sign up for the product, and get going right away. We also have a Pro Edition that is for teams and departments. This is a completely managed cloud deployment. So as a customer, there's no software infrastructure to manage. We do that all for you, and there's connectivity to files, relational databases, and cloud applications or cloud sources. There's enterprise support, and the way we price that is around the computational capacity and also the number of licenses you have in that environment. And that's typically focused on smaller team or departmental implementations of Trifacta. And then we have an enterprise edition that provides all the bells and whistles, unlimited volume and scalability, broad connectivity. There's 24/7 support, and that's also focused on sort of the scale of the platform you deploy upon and the number of user licenses that you would need in that environment. So as Cindy mentioned, this past quarter, we were named a leader in the Forrester Wave for data preparation solutions. This is the second wave on data prep over the past few years, and we've been a leader in every wave that's come out from Forrester. So I will provide a link at the end that will allow you to go to our website and download this. But great to check out, especially if you're evaluating data preparation vendors and how they differentiate across. So in the latter half, I want to focus on, what are the things as an organization you should think about when you're looking to deploy a data preparation technology, and thinking about, how do we select a vendor, what is the use case we're trying to drive, and how do we show value from that, which, data prep as a new practice and as a new technology to a lot of companies, a lot of the questions we get from companies that are interested in investing in data preparation is what is the framework that they should use to not only think about where to deploy data preparation, but how to make it successful. So with any technology, it all starts with the use case. One of the things that we see a pattern of is a diverse set of use cases across both analytic use cases and also operational use cases. And so when you're thinking about investing in data preparation, you need to define what's the use case that we're using this for. So to give you an example of where we see this, analytics obviously is a key use case. Typically, this is around driving some new analytic initiative. So if you're looking to sort of look at customer 360 or do some sort of churn analysis and bringing together new sources of data to drive some new analysis, data preparation is a very, very critical aspect of having success with that new initiative. Another key use case we see is this concept of data onboarding, which is taking maybe external data that you're not familiar with, that could be from a partner, from a customer, and integrating that with existing internal data. So the concept of taking data that you don't totally understand and you don't have control over the structure, using a data preparation solution to first uncover what's in that data, prep it, and join it together with existing data. AI and machine learning, there's obviously a lot of hype and a lot of investment happening in machine learning. In order to do machine learning, you need well-structured, clean data that is also engineered for the type of machine learning or AI that you're doing. So a lot of the work that data scientists will perform in getting data for some ML model is making sure that the right features are available in that data set to run a churn analysis or to run some sort of decision tree. And so that is a key part of that process. And then data quality, so any data quality solutions that you have that are trying to understand, is the data that we have from this device or this database of high quality and things of that nature. So I'm not going to go through the end of these, but MDM and IoT are also use cases we see. So think about these as examples, and if we're looking at a data preparation solution, where do we fall into this, or is there a different use case that we fall into? The other thing is the technology environment. So as I showed in the past slide, Trifacta integrates with a lot of different data platforms across on-premise environments and cloud environments. So you want to think, where do I want to run this solution? Do I want to run it as a Trifacta managed cloud environment or vendor managed cloud environment, or do I want to deploy centrally on one of these platforms? And that can be an on-prem Hadoop environment, or that can be a cloud environment on one of the major vendors. And then think about the different elements of this. So ingestion, how am I ingesting data in the platform? Am I using open source? Am I using a vendor-driven technology like stream sets? Security, so what are the security controls that we have within our organization, and how do we implement that across data prep? So one of the things that, as a vendor we do at Trifacta is we make sure that we are integrating with all the existing security frameworks that you would have in place, such as LDAP, Active Directory, or in the Hadoop environment, Ranger or Sentry, and making sure that there's no separate security policy that we require you to implement as an application. Data catalog, so are you investing in a centralized data catalog to access data, and should integration with that be a key part of this? And then what are the downstream applications where data being prepared in Trifacta will get consumed? So that could be some visualization or BI system, or it could be a data science or machine learning environment as well. So these are all the integration points or the ecosystem that we would deploy into, and as a company that's investing in data preparation, how do you want to think about where we're going to touch, where data is going to live, how we're implementing security, how we are landing data into the environment, is there data catalog integration, and where is the data going to be consumed downstream? You also need to think about who are the users. So, we've done a lot of work at Trifacta and looking at who are the different users of our technology, and are they primary end users, or are they what we call secondary end users? And I'll talk a little bit about what we mean by that, and also who are the different stakeholders within this environment. So not only users, but you also have a data architect and analytics executive. Data architect is typically not going to be the person who is the end user of the technology, but maybe the person who's making the investment in the technology, or the administrator of the platform and the environment of that technology. And then the analytics executive, so someone who is investing in new technology and a new solution, might be the individual who's saying, hey, we need data preparation to execute this new analytics initiative. So it may not be the person who's interacting with the technology, but is driving the investment for data preparation. And so these are all things to think about in terms of what are the roles they play in the purchasing process, and also the deployment and value creation once a data preparation solution has been implemented. And the reason we call data analysts and data engineers primary end users is, as I mentioned before, the data analysts are typically the people that have the context for the data, that are using Trifacta to help them bring together raw sources of information or raw data sets to then prep it for some analytic initiative. And our solution, the user experience, the machine learning guidance, and leveraging visualization throughout the application, we're enabling data analysts to be able to do this work themselves instead of relying on a coding environment or some other framework. And then data engineers, they could be in this framework, working with Trifacta to help maybe prep data, do some initial prep of data for the data analyst, but also mostly focus on the operationalization of workflows that analysts are driven. So an analyst will take data sets, build out a workflow, and say, hey, I need this to run every week at this time. And that would be a handoff between the analyst and the data engineer to do that work themselves. So you want to think about, what are the different roles in this organization that these people take on. So this slide isn't rendering completely accurately, but think about, what are the analysts doing? Are they doing the transformation? Are they doing exploration? Are they doing modeling? Who handles the operationalization? How do we think about data governance? And then who are the consumers of data? So this is the way we sort of give a framework for our customers to think about, okay, what are the user groups? What are the tasks that they're performing? And how do we want to align different personas or different types of users to these different tasks that are required for a data preparation implementation? And once you sort of aligned on the use case, aligned on the technology environment, and then aligned on who are the stakeholders and what are the roles they play, you also want to think about, what does success look like? So if I implement a data preparation solution, how do I define success? And a few ways to think about this is, hey, if I'm launching a new analytics initiative, I want to track time to market. So how much time it takes from initial kickoff to delivering that initiative. Think about how can we drive this as fast as possible, leveraging a data preparation solution. If I'm investing in data prep to improve the efficiency of an existing process, let's try to measure time savings or people savings around taking a process that took 8 weeks and now we've reduced it down to 2 weeks. So that's another way to think about ROI when you're measuring the value of the investment you've made. And then we have a lot of customers that are looking at modernizing the analytics platform or solutions that are around that. And when you're modernizing your stack, whether that's a cloud investment or investment in self-service, you want to think about scale of deployment and also adoption of these technologies. So those are the things that we provide guidance to our customers. And how do you think about this? Because when you purchase a solution, you're going to need to show ROI, and depending upon the role that a data preparation solution will play, these are the things to start thinking about to measure ROI and to prove the value of that investment. So some of the framework that we provide to our customers is think through this as a process when you're selecting a solution. So define the use case, tech requirements, define the success criteria, produce a workshop with the different stakeholders that you've identified to talk through, how is this process going to work? How do we generate business value, and what are the roles and responsibilities across this? Making sure that the interoperability of the solution handles your environment, the architecture you put out, and then set up a methodology and roll out for the solution, and then wrap up with the executives to make sure everyone's aligned and invested in moving forward in this. So I'm going to close with one of our customers and how they've approached this and the value that they were able to see in implementing Trifacta. So one of the things that we provide to our customers, so I'm using PepsiCo as a customer example of ours, is look at what are the business problems you're trying to solve as a customer, and then also what are the technical challenges with the environment, with the tool set, and with whatever processes in place that are eliminating you from solving the business case. So in this example, PepsiCo, obviously a huge CPG company, they work with a variety of retail vendors to sell their products. And a key part of how they ship product to retailers is around sales forecasting. And this is a collaboration they have to have with their retail partners, is look at PepsiCo sales data, map that with the data from a retailer. So it could be a retailer that's a Safeway or a Walgreens or some big retail chain, and understand how does our data match up with the retailer, and how do we create planning to ship product to these retailers and create promotions that allow us to make this process more efficient, and also make sure that we're not sending spoiled product or having too much product sent to certain retailers. So one of the challenges that they had is, how do I accelerate the process to do forecasting, sales forecasting, so we're not getting data too late to actually provide input to the product that we send. So there was a process that they set up with Excel, with Access, that was just too challenging, unscalable, and too time-consuming for them to actually be able to do this analysis fast enough to provide value to their retail partners. And so that's the technical case. So the CPFR team, which is the team at PepsiCo that was leading this, and what CPFR stands for is Collaborative Planning, Forecasting, and Replenishment. They receive up to 15 disparate files from their retail partners each week, and each of these files was in a different format that needed to be standardized with the PepsiCo format that they had. So this is very common to that data onboarding example I talked about earlier. And so they needed to reconcile that data with PepsiCo's own data to provide these forecasts. And doing this in Excel and Access was very manual, very labor intensive, and incredibly inefficient, and they weren't able to turn around these forecasts in a tight enough time frame to provide value for their retail partners. So this is sort of the business side of it, and the existing technology or process that was not allowing them to do this effectively. So when PepsiCo implemented Trifacta, they looked at the environment and how this would be embedded within their unified data architecture. So they had a variety of different data sources, one feeding operational analytics on top with the enterprise data warehouse, business intelligence, and some of the applications they built around that. And then they also had sort of an environment for new initiatives where they would land some of this retail sales data, inventory data, and then they would leverage Trifacta in a Teradata environment to drive some of this CPFR analysis and to improve some of the sales forecasting. So this is sort of how they've approached this process in taking a process that was generally driven from Excel and XLS and implementing a common platform to drive some of the CPFR analysis and improve efficiency. Now, I think since this architecture has been implemented, they've converted sort of that Hortonworks Hadoop environment to an Azure-based data lake, and that is sort of representative to a lot of the shift we're seeing in cloud implementations at our customers. And then here's some of the benefits that they've seen from the implementation of a data lake and of Trifacta on top of that. And they've sort of taken this Excel and Access environment and reduced the build time by 90% and this CPFR reporting time by 70%. They also were able to improve data quality. So they actually discovered multiple shipment errors that costing them millions of dollars within the first few months of using Trifacta. And as part of this, a big piece of this is also reducing the dependency in IT. So every time you have a new data set, every time you need to run some sort of preparation step, an analyst can probably do that themselves instead of relying on IT to do that for them. So I have a quote here from one of our analysts and users at PepsiCo and saying how it brought a totally new level of productivity between how their analysts and IT teams work together to explore diverse data and define analytic requirements. So hopefully that gives you a sense for how we work with customers to think about what's the use case for data prep, what's the environment, who are the stakeholders, and how do you implement successfully. As part of this webinar, we are providing a link to a free download for the copy of the Forrester Wave that Cinny mentioned earlier. We have a few stats on sort of our scoring and our performance in the Wave that if you download the report, you're able to see in greater detail. But obviously, pleased to be a leader in data preparation for this year and are very excited to continue our leadership position in this space and driving where the market for data preparation is headed in the future. So with that, the one thing I'd call out before passing back to Bill is, if you want to get started with us, feel free to reach out, go to our website, schedule a demo. We also have that free product, Wrangler, that I mentioned before, so you can go to the website, sign up, and get started using immediately. So with that, I'm going to pass it to Bill to jump into Q&A.
Well, Will, Cinny, thank you for that excellent presentation. And while we get started with today's Q&A session, I want to thank the audience for their participation. Had a lot of questions that have come in, and we'll do our best to get through all of them in the time remaining. And during this Q&A session, I'll leave up this screen with contact information for Will and Cinny if you'd like to contact them following today's webinar. So let's get started. Will, Cinny, a couple of higher-level framing questions from the audience. How does, we've been doing ETL for a long time. How does data preparation in this context differ from ETL? Does it replace it? Is it an adjunct? How do they relate?
Yeah, so thanks, Bill. It's a common question we get because when people see the tasks that we focus on as a data preparation provider, a lot of companies or members of their team say, hey, we use ETL for that. So we're not trying to replace ETL. If you have an existing data integration or ETL process that is running in your organization, our advice is don't try to rip and replace that. I would keep, as long as that is running in a scalable, repeatable fashion, that is something that you should continue to do. Trifacta focuses more on sort of net new initiatives or new analytics initiatives that think about looking at new sets of data, new combinations of data, and are needing a faster development process that's more iterative to be able to execute those processes. So the way I would think about this pretty simple is sort of like, what's the use case? Is it existing or is it new? If it's new, then data preparation is probably a good technology to invest in. Who are the users? So if the user is a member of your IT team or a member of the data warehouse team, then then ETL is typically the solution to be leveraged. But if you're looking to have analysts be able to do this work and discover new things out of their data, then data preparation is probably a key part of that. And then think about the platform too. So if you're investing in a modern stack and moving to cloud-based platforms, then based on the architecture of data preparation solutions, I would highly recommend looking at a modern approach such as data prep to how you would manage that process.
Well, thanks for that clarification. Similarly, we've talked for years about data governance. Is DataOps now replacing data governance? Is data governance a higher level activity? How do they relate?
I'll take that one, and then Will, please feel free to comment as well. Data governance is very much a part of DataOps, a critical part of DataOps. So data stewards in the slide I showed on the village that is the DataOps team are the ones that play that role. Of course, the business is also going to be providing really critical input into that so that we can make sure that we are using the offense approach to data that I showed, where we have to have multiple versions of different kinds of data in order to drive value. Will, would you have any comments on that too?
I would say that data governance is a critical element of DataOps, similar to your answer. I think as organizations build out these processes, especially in highly regulated organizations, having visibility into where the data was sourced from, what transformations were applied to it, and where it was being published to is critical. So data governance as a broader activity is one of the underpinning processes that an organization must take on as part of a DataOps practice, and having a common platform to do all the data preparation work provides a better data governance approach versus doing this in sort of desktop-based solutions like an Excel files-based solution or like a desktop app for this type of work. So having sort of a common platform enables data governance to be more easily managed.
Well, thank you both for that answer. Now, Cinny, in your presentation, you presented DataOps as a modernization, and a lot of folks are still stuck back in their existing data warehouse and BI practices. What advice can you offer about how to get started in the adoption of DataOps and the modernization of that practice for companies that aren't doing that yet?
Sure, and I'll take it from a people, process, culture approach, and Will spoke to that in a way earlier in his presentation. I'll turn it back over to him. At the end of the day, as I say so many times, you might be rolling your eyes. It's the value of data is in our ability to use it for insights that we use to improve business outcomes, including customer experience, but not limited to that. Obviously, the PepsiCo example that Will gave is an operational one that's also really critical. So it's absolutely critical that all the folks involved in data today in firms are helping their business stakeholders to grasp how they can better use data, just at a high level. Will, with respect to Trifacta, what's your point of view on that question?
Yeah, so modernization is I think the way we think about that is there's a key part of it, which is self-service. So, in any, technology investment where you have business end users wanting to, work with some technology, I think creating processes that don't create bottlenecks for certain technical users performing them, where you're able to sort of allow a process to have a greater number of end users be able to operate that function is critical. So, our focus in that is taking data prep from maybe an IT-centric or technical expert-centric process to allowing a broad set of users to be able to perform that process and therefore remove the bottleneck. So I think self-service is a key piece of that. I think technology, the platform you're running on, making sure that it's fit for the scale of data, the velocity of data, and the veracity of data, all the V's that you pointed out earlier is also critical. And we see cloud, the scalability, elasticity of cloud, providing that as a key part. And then also thinking about governance too. So as organizations invest in these practices, they have to think about governance. They have to understand that, if they're performing some analysis, they have very, very clear view of how that analytics was defined and what were the inputs that drove that. So I think those are really key elements to driving these investments.
Well, thank you. That's really good advice. Now, the audience is getting right to the point here. A lot of folks are using Tableau and Alteryx for data prep, and they'd like to know how you compare Trifacta against those really popular common platforms.
So it was Alteryx, and what was the other one?
Tableau.
Tableau, okay. Yeah, so I think Alteryx. I think there's user experience differences in terms of how Alteryx's user experience versus a Trifacta. One of the main differences in that is in Alteryx, when you're building out a workflow, you are creating a workflow end to end before you get any feedback on how transformations are actually impacting the data. So that's a very sort of waterfall-driven approach to building a data preparation workflow. So if you're able to, say, build out all the sets of transformations, run that job, and then once the job is run, you would be able to see feedback on how those transformations impacted the data. Versus Trifacta in user experience, which unfortunately we weren't able to show today, you're constantly building transformations, seeing previews of each of those transformations during the development process, and validating that they are correct or editing them to be correct. So that sort of takes a more agile approach to this preparation development process. I think there are differences in terms of deployment. Alteryx is mainly a desktop or server-based environment. They don't have support for sort of scalable engines to the extent that a system like Trifacta would have. There are also sort of approaches to integration and governance and things like that. So there are a lot of different approaches to that, but I think user experience, architecture, scalability are some of the key ones there. And the other one was Tableau. Our customers, they're prepping data to feed into a variety of different applications downstream. It could be Tableau, it could be a machine learning application, it could be a database. And Tableau prep, when you're using that technology, you are feeding Tableau only. So you have no diversity in terms of how you're outputting data downstream for analysis versus Trifacta. We support a variety of inputs and outputs, which is a key differentiation. Tableau is also sort of an early on product for their prep piece, so there are issues with sort of usability, scalability, and things of that nature that I'm happy to dive into offline.
Okay, well, Will, here's another interesting request for comparison, and it has to do with Google Data Prep, which I understand Trifacta built. Does Google Data Prep really differ from the Data Wrangler options?
Yeah, so there are some differences. So Cloud Data Prep on Google is a technology that is essentially embedding Trifacta's user experience and workflow onto the Google Cloud platform. So from a user experience perspective, from the actual end-to-end interaction with the product, it's identical. There are differences in terms of connectivity. So the Cloud Data Prep product is based on connectivity only within the Google Cloud ecosystem. So you wouldn't be able to use Trifacta to connect to some external database or some external application. The connectivity is limited to Google Cloud. There also are you also are based on the Google Cloud security settings too. So you wouldn't be able to customize security to something that's outside of Google Cloud. It's all sort of connectivity, security, administration are all embedded within whatever you have within Google Cloud. If you wanted to provide anything outside of that, then that would be a reason to go to Trifacta to leverage the platform that would be able to provide broader connectivity, administration, security outside of what Google Cloud offers.
Oh, interesting comparison. Yeah, a couple of quick technical questions. Getting data out of PDFs is always a real problem. Can Trifacta import data from PDFs?
So right now we don't focus on extraction of data from PDFs. This is something that's been asked about from our customer base, and it's something that I think we are investing in moving forward. But right now, you wouldn't be able to use Trifacta to essentially extract information from a PDF to sort of a CSV file or to make that data able to be analyzed. That is not something that we focus on now, but it is something that I can see us investing in the future.
Yeah, that's a tough one. And an audience member has asked whether or not Trifacta will run on Safari.
Yeah, the browser question comes up quite a bit. Primarily right now we are based on Chrome, but we are working on integrating with different web browsers moving forward. So I think interest in Safari, interest in Microsoft Edge, interest in a variety of browsers is out there, and we are evaluating that as it comes up. And so, I wouldn't if we don't support a specific browser as something that would be eliminate Trifacta from an opportunity. We are aggressively approaching this space, and I don't see us having a limitation there in the near future.
Well, Will, Cinny, thank you for some great answers to some very good questions. And for those of you that asked questions that weren't answered today, we'll be sending all the unanswered questions to Will and Cinny and the Trifacta team so they can follow up with you after today's webinar. I have just a couple of quick announcements. If you'd please mark your calendars for December 18th, that's our next DSC webinar, which is Clean Data and Accurate ML Models. Also, remember that today's taping will be available for viewing later today, and you can find that on the home page of Data Science Central in the Webinar tab located at the top of the page. Also, all of our past webinars are also available on demand at datasciencecentral.com. And if you haven't had a chance to look at these, I encourage you to look through them. They provide some very useful insight into a wide variety of topics of interest to our data science community. Well, this brings today's webinar to a close. I'd like to thank our audience for their attendance and thoughtful questions. A special thanks to Trifacta and Forrester for sponsoring today's event, and particularly our speakers, Will Davis and Cinny Little, for their insights into today's topics. Now, this is Bill Voorhees. I'm very pleased to have been your host for today's event. Look forward to seeing you all again on December 18th. Have a great day.